welcome to Midnight Musings of a Christian Attorney. I'm your host, Lee Henning. Today's topic is, was the United States of America founded on Christian principles? Was the U.S. founded on Christian principles? I'm often, but not always, proud to be an American. I am always blessed and privileged to be an American. But the question is whether the United States was founded on Christian principles. I often hear, particularly on conservative Christian radio, the speakers talking about how the United States was founded on Christian principles. Is that historically accurate? Was the United States founded on Christian principles? To understand that, the answer to that question, we need to look at the philosophical underpinnings of our government and how those underpinnings compare with Christian principles about government. So to do that, we have to look historically to what was going on in the Middle Ages and after that in Europe. And so for many years in Europe, the prominent political philosophy is what's called the divine right of kings. So the idea was that the king was responsible only to God, and that the king was installed by God, and he was only responsible to God. And so a lot of kings took that to the extreme and thought they could do whatever they wanted to their people, and it led to a lot of abuses. And then, of course, we had the Renaissance, which ultimately led to the Enlightenment and modernism. And particularly with Enlightenment and modernism, their developments in science, the arts, and political philosophy. And underpinning the political philosophy at the time was a rejection of the divine right of kings. You had social writers such as John Locke, who was an English physician and philosopher in the 17th century, and Jean-Jacques Rousseau, a French philosopher in the 18th century. And what they surmised, or what they concluded, is that government got its authority not from God, but government got its authority from the people. In fact, it was called the social contract, that a group of people to get together, and then we have this implied or express contract that we're going to form a government because the world works better if we have governments than if we don't. But that the authority of the government comes from the people. And that concept that government comes from the authority of the people rather than from God was clearly what was behind the Declaration of Independence. And I'm only going to read a short excerpt of that, but just to clarify that I'm accurate, and you can go back and read the whole thing. This is a quote from the Declaration of Independence. "Governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed. That whenever any form of government becomes destructive to those ends, it is the right of the people to alter or abolish it and to institute new government." So government, in our founding fathers thought government got its authority solely from the people, as had been very much the prominent political thought of the day. So what does the Bible say about government? There's a lot of references, but I'm just going to read one of them from Romans 13. This is Romans 13, excerpts from 1 through 6. "Let everyone be subject to the governing authorities, for there is no authority except which God has established. The authorities that exist have been established by God. Consequently, whoever rebels against the authority is rebelling against what God has instituted. For those who do so will bring judgment on themselves. For the one in authority is God's servant, for your good. But if you do wrong, be afraid, for rulers do not bear the sword for no reason. They are God's servants, agents of wrath to bring punishment on the wrongdoer. Therefore, it is necessary to submit to the authorities, not only because of possible punishment, but also as a matter of conscience. This is also why you pay taxes, for the authorities are God's servants who give their full time to governing." And there are numerous other examples with similar sort of teachings. For example, 1 Peter 2, 13 and 14, Titus 3, 1. And of course, Christ in all three of the Synoptic Gospels talked about rendering under Caesar the things that are Caesar's and under God the things that are God's. And you got to remember at the time that Christ and the New Testament writers were writing, the Jews were being governed by the Romans. The Romans had conquered that area. They were often oppressive It would be like if we were conquered by the Russians. A lot of us wouldn't be very happy about that, including me. But at that time, Christ and the New Testament writers were saying, obey these authorities because they were instituted by God. So, which is the Christian principle? The principle that government gets authority from people, or that government gets authority from God? Clearly, the United States of America was not founded on Christian principles, but rather was founded on humanistic modernist principles of the 16th and 17th centuries. My rating on this one, which is how confident I feel about the information I've told you, I'm pretty confident. I'm going to say my rating is about 85%. So, folks, thank you very much for listening. Today's topic was whether the United States of America was founded on Christian principles. This has been Midnight Musings of a Christian Attorney, which is my comments about society, religion, Christianity, and the law from my perspective as a Christian who happens to be an attorney.